Hello. Marcy met with Island Net and Think Premium JA, of course, in association, right? And I just want to actually talk a little bit about cloud migration versus private data. A lot of companies are actually switching to cloud migration, but there's still implications and there's still benefits from having private data. So, in our message today, I'm actually going to be focusing on cloud versus private data. So when I'm speaking about cloud migration, I'm talking about really switching their services, whether it's storage or word processing or the use of different applications, from being used on their specific devices to it being accessed through the internet on a cloud, and then being able to do their different operations through that, versus private data where the information is shared through the network using a private tunnel, and things like application files, etc., shared through that private network, and in many cases they don't touch the internet. Right. So many companies are switching to cloud migration because it has lower costs. It's the operations are a lot more simplified, and it's a lot easier to roll out applications. So for example, like you can do like a software defined wide area network, and you can run like your Microsoft Office, your QuickBooks. Let's say you have a pharmacy, you can have your pharmacy cloud-based application being used, and you can share that across the different locations within your network seamlessly, because they don't have to be physically connected by a MPLS network like the fiber or the wireless network, have equipment set up on their offices, have the time needed to have that set up, because even setting up fiber takes time. You can just quickly set up an SD-WAN, and you can share files electronic, or you can set up even a virtual private network that can be built on, let's say, your firewall, for instance, and between one location, which can be the head office, and at least one other location, which can be like a satellite office, right? So that's something that your business can do. And yeah, again, they're lower cost, they're simplified operations, and it is easier to roll out. However, there are other reasons why companies are switching to cloud-based migration, but there are also some cons to it as well. For instance, as I would have mentioned before, it's a lot cheaper to do. Like there are lower capital expenditures because you don't have to get somebody to install equipment or anything like that. So you really don't need the hardware as much. It's more of a software thing where cloud applications are being used. And the operational cost can be lower because depending on how much hardware you need, you really don't need to have as much staff, etc., to or resources to maintain it. So like with the cloud application, because somebody else is doing it and you're like a third party is doing it, and you're just using what you need to do, you don't have to have the physical investment of having like the software downloaded, updating it every time, for instance, and being held up by that. You can get like a Microsoft 360 instead of getting the CDs every year, and it just updates as you need to. Like it literally would, you just update your subscription and it would automatically update with the relevant updates, instead of paying for the CD, downloading it after having the CD backed up somewhere in case something happened. The thing, like it can be a headache. So that's just one example. There are also reduced opportunity costs because it's so quick to install, like the cloud computing. Um, I mean, the capital expenditures that you'd spend wouldn't be what it would be if you were to install private data. And I'm going to be very honest. So while private data is very useful for large businesses, for example, I do appreciate opportunity costs that can come with setting up private data. And of course, it is a lot more flexible with cloud computing. It makes scaling up a lot easier because it's just one other device to add to your software defined wide area network, versus having to go pay to go get cabling or your wireless access points or antennas or all of that sent set up so your location can benefit from it, ensuring that the location is in line of sight of the radio, so you can get the internet, also other things. I can understand. I can understand, and plus, it can actually, depending on what you want to do, it can be more available and more reliable, and there can be greater availability because since it uses the internet, it can, depending on your service level agreement, actually guarantee up to 99% uptime depending on the provider. For instance, with IslandNet, because we offer dedicated internet access, or uptime is like 99%, you know. Your uptime is 99%. For internet packages, it's 99%. The only things that the bandwidth assurance can change as well. But you see, if you're using like a dedicated internet access, the bandwidth assurance is 99%. Like you get the internet that you pay for, the bandwidth that you pay for 99% of the time. Right? Versus let's say you just stick with that regular burst of internet where it would the bandwidth assurance can go down to 80%, or even up to 99%, depending on what your specific issue is. But it's usually 80% that it would go down to, where we're concerned in comparison to our competitors, which many of the times the bandwidth assurance is like 30% in many cases. That's something to bear in mind. But at the same time, again, it can actually be more reliable and available. It really all depends, because technically, if the bandwidth assurance is an issue, then you can also face similar things with your private data as well. It really all depends on the provider, to be very honest. But there are disadvantages to using private data though. I mean, as I said before, nothing's foolproof, and to be honest, the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. William Gibson wasn't lying when he said that. The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So there are companies that have already started using cloud technology. A lot of people are switching to cloud-based technology. For example, a lot of companies use Amazon servers. And cloud technology does allow companies to re-engineer the backend architectures, like the servers, the database, application software, and more, and really like set up virtual environments where they can be accessed remotely without requiring physical server hardware on their own. And this actually came from an article written by Mythnos Computing on LinkedIn, where you're talking about why businesses are moving to cloud in 2023. You should really give that article a read when you get a chance. But there are disadvantages to using cloud-based computing, though. So while you can benefit from things like insights and analytics, you can also benefit from insights and analytics with private data. But at the same time, with private data like MPLS, for example, or your virtual private local area network, for instance, with the MPLS, which is the internet doesn't come into play at all. You're literally sharing information from one point to another point without using the internet at all. You have greater compliance. Like, it's when you're operating the cloud, you don't own you don't really own the equipment, so you really don't know where things are located in the world. You don't know where the data center is. You don't know which routes the information is being taken through as it's traveling over your network. So there are opportunities where things can get intercepted. There are areas where you can't necessarily speak to what that provider is doing with the information, because you just don't know. At least with a MPLS, say you control a network. It's for your network. So anything that goes in and out of the network, only authorized persons can access it, and it can only be used for a specified purpose. You can't necessarily guarantee that with cloud computing. Another thing is that with cloud computing, there's no real clear plan or strategy. Not every application can or should even be on the cloud. And ntiva.com specifies this, and I like how they said it. They said that you require a clear business case for cloud adoption. And you need a coherent migration plan. Like, a detailed migration plan will help you to identify and prioritize applications that represent the greatest reward and the least risk. Helping you to avoid downtime if unexpected challenges were to occur during migration. For example, a hospital, or like a bank, for instance, or like an insurance company where you're dealing with people's private information. Like, you deal with like a hospital, you deal with diagnosis. A bank, you obviously deal with people banking information. Yeah, I wouldn't put my information on the internet. I wouldn't do it. It's not the best idea. For certain things, and you're sharing information across the network, it's probably not the best idea to put it on the internet. I'm being very honest, because the risk of it being intercepted is just too high. It's just too high. Even if you're supposed to use a virtual private network, a VPN, the risk is too high. It's just too high. It might not be worth it for certain companies. So you have to look on that. And again, there is a potential for data loss because you have to back up your information if you're going to use cloud-based computing, because files can get lost in transit. Files can get corrupted while they're in transit. So have a backup. You need for backup somewhere. So if you want to do some offsite storage, which Island can assist you with, because we do have our remote data centers, you can do that. But at least have a backup, so in case their files missing, they can be restored. And many cloud providers actually do provide comprehensive backups too, and secure storage as a part of their migration services for that reason, because things happen. And as I said before, with in comparison to MPLS, there is really less control. You don't have as much visibility. There's a lack of visibility and there's a lack of control. And actually, like what Upwork.com, there's this creator that wrote a very lovely article on it. Yes, I do sit down and I read these things. I've always had a fascination with IT. I just never actually used it. So all these years I was talking about marketing, I've always had a fascination with IT. I just never actually used it, to be very honest. But going back to my train of thought. Yes. So when you're saying loss of visibility, meaning that, and I'm going to read what they have here, along with decreasing the control you have over your data, your IT team's visibility into how your data is stored and accessed may also be reduced. So the trade-off when turning to cloud storage is that a third party is now managing the hosting of these systems. Pay attention to that. A third party is now managing the hosting of these systems. As a result, you lose some visibility into your own operations. For instance, you may not be able to resolve technical issues or problems with your firewall any longer, thus leaving your cloud provider to tackle these issues. So when you outsource certain things, like let's say like your QuickBooks or your server, if there are issues on Amazon's end, let's say Amazon is your server provider, you can't do nothing about that. That's an Amazon issue. If somebody hacking an Amazon server, them, well, I mean, granted, you can sue, but it's still gonna be an Amazon issue. So that's something that you have to go pay attention to there. And of course, as I said before, new data stored on a cloud can be lost. So if, let's say, something happens and you lose the information, you don't even know where the breakdown happened. You just know, say, the information just got lost in translation. To be very honest, it is what it is. Like, what you gonna do, right? And that's a real risk that you have to contend with. And there's also a lack of budget control. At least with an MPLS, you can control how much you spend on it and how much you're dealing with to operate it on a consistent basis. Because with multi-protocol label switching, or MPLS, is a technique for speeding up network connections, and it also, because it is used to allow persons to share information seamlessly without using the internet, I'm trying to find the right words here. Hold on. You're using certain paths. So while even if a packet, even like packets or batches of information are intercepted while it's along a path, it's still private because only one organization can use that path. And unlike, yeah, share it with no NCB, or yeah, share it with Scotia, yeah, share it with Bank of America, yeah, share it with Petco, yeah, share it with Geico, yeah, because everybody has shared the same information path, and these things happen with cloud computing. You don't know because of the loss of visibility. Multiple companies might be sharing information along the same path, and you don't know. It's just an example. It depends on the provider that you're using and what you're using it for, but I'm just giving you an example, right? You don't have as much control, and because of that, your cost can change too. Your cost can change. There can be cost overruns. You can also have surplus infrastructure as well, because now what do you do with the old stuff? What do you do with the old applications? Or some applications you have to have a backup as well. So you now have two things. You have a cost to have it on the cloud, and you also have a cost to have it locally as well. Which, when I say locally, I mean on your physical network. So depending on what you're doing, the budget overrun thing is an issue. And again, there are security issues as well. You know? There are security issues as well. There are security issues as well. So with like MPLS, you can actually get encryption through having a virtual private network connection. And again, a good firewall can help you with that because you can use a firewall like Fortinet. With our managed firewall services through Island, you can set up a virtual private network. Once you have more than one entities, you can set up a virtual private network through MPLS or just through the regular internet. So you can have information being shared either through the internet, through that virtual private network, or you can even use the same MPLS and have the firewall there as a security mechanism that can also offer encryption services to the information as it is being shared across the different information channel, right? But and it's actually probably one of the best ways to keep a network connection truly private. At the same time, yeah, things get hacked all the time, bro. Like hospitals have been getting hacked a lot lately. Banks have been getting hacked a lot lately. Shoot, services that deliver meals to your locations get hacked regularly. So it is what it is. At least with a MPLS, you're a little bit more sure because you have control over that. Anything can happen with a third party, and if something go wrong, it just go wrong. And of course, last but not least, you might choose the wrong provider. You might just choose a provider that is just not good for your business. And then what? At least with a physical thing, even if you have the wrong equipment, you can still get local technical assistance and help with that. But it might not necessarily do much for you if you are doing a third party. So before you go, to decide whether or not you're doing it cloud based or you're doing it like the private data route, which both of which IronNet can help you with, because we can help you with the cloud based side of things in terms of like setting up your virtual private network, SD1 or whatever it is you want to do, or even like offsite storage, managed firewall services, etc. I would suggest firstly that you look on your existing backend infrastructure, and a good sales rep like I can help you with that, or any sales rep can help you with that. But you, as a decision maker, you need to take a critical look on your backend infrastructure, and you need to decide what should go where for this particular application, where you're gonna store it, all of that good stuff. You need to start thinking about that. Like, what's your budget too, and who are you going to hire to help you and your team to manage it? If you want to grow your business, how scalable does this whole application need to be, and what type of security will your business need in order for you to get the most value from it? These are things that you need to think about, because as businesses continue to grow and evolve, you know, you're you are going to want to take advantage of either cloud computing or private data. It really all depends. And just because what's good for goose doesn't mean it have to be good for gander, you know. It should be, but it doesn't mean it have to be. It's business this. What might work for my business may not work for your business. I do want you to remember that. So I do hope this helps. If it does and you want to learn more, DM me. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Again, I'm Marcy Ben from Think Premium GA in association with IslandNet. If this message added value to you, please comment down below and tell me. Comment down below and say, I want to learn more about private data versus cloud computing. I want to learn more about private data versus cloud computing. That's it. Take care. Have a wonderful day. And remember to never stop dreaming. Bye bye.